can't trust myself. So don't get me started on anybody else. I'm under your spell. Always overthinking. Hold on to me tight and pull me out to the deep end. Barely breathing. So unbreakable. Keeping an eye and circling like an animal. You won't let me go. This part of me is waging a war, and it turns out I'm the enemy. I'll never be free. I hear you in the night. It's when you come alive. Screaming on the inside, you're inside. Oh, I feel you in my bones, clinging to my soul. I know I'm not alone in the shadows. In the shadows. No, I'm not alone. No, I'm not alone now. No, I'm not alone. No, I'm not alone. No, I'm not alone now. No, I'm not alone. No, I'm not alone now. No, I'm not alone. No, I'm not alone. No, I'm not alone now. Been losing sleep, closing my eyes to find you standing in front of me. But this isn't a dream. Can you hear me now? I'm done with the games, I can't blame everybody else. I'm calling you out. I hear you in the night. It's when you come alive. Screaming on the inside, you're inside. Oh, I feel you in my bones, clinging to my soul. I know I'm not alone in the shadows. In the shadows. No, I'm not alone. No, I'm not alone now. No, I'm not alone. No, I'm not alone. No, I'm not alone now. No, I'm not alone. No, I'm not alone now. No, I'm not alone. No, I'm not alone. No, I'm not alone now.
Alright, should be working, and I hope that this is a good, entertaining video. I never done anything like this, so it's kind of hit or miss on what happens with it, but here's a nice view of the parts. I'm using AMD build this time. Usually I go Intel, but AMD is definitely a lot more competitive nowadays than they used to be. But for starters, we're kind of using parts that I might not use every time because just the scarcity of parts at the moment, but these are all still good parts. For starters, we're using a Asus ROG Strix B450-F gaming motherboard, And then along with that, we're using the AMD Ryzen 3700X CPU. Along with that, you can't see it in here, but we also have 32 gigs of G.Skill 3200 Hertz memory. We have a EVGA RTX 2060 Super here, which is a really good card, especially when you think about streaming if you're going to use the NVENC encoder, which I highly suggest if you're streaming. It takes away so much of your issues with like H.264 with your CPU usage. Along with that, we're also using a Hyper 212 Evo cooler for the CPU. I know the AMD comes with the Wraith cooler. I'm not a huge fan of those, so I like to use the Cooler Master Hyper 212 Evo. It's actually one of my favorite air coolers. In my personal build, I'm using a Corsair H100i all-in-one, but this performs just as well. Along with that, we have a Samsung 1TB budget SSD. And then we also have a Seagate Barracuda 2TB drive. And then we also are using a PowerSpec 650 watt power supply because power supplies are very hard to find right now. And honestly, this is the only option. I looked into it, found out it's actually a refurbished EVGA unit is typically what's used for these. So I typically use EVGA, so I feel good about this. And then we also have a Corsair Carbide Series Spec 02 case, black coloring with the see-through acrylic panel with some red RGB lighting included, which I really enjoy. But let's get to it. Like I said, I haven't done anything like this before, so this is a first time for me. I haven't actually opened any of these parts yet, so we're going to go through the whole entire process of building this PC. So, one moment. I forgot a knife. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and just open up these boxes. We're going to start with the case just because it's the biggest, bulkiest one on the table here. Alright, so we got the case unwrapped, and, let's see. Oh, I didn't set that up. No. Anyway, we'll get to the parts. I'm gonna just keep unwrapping. Keep going from here. Let's, Alright. So we're going to go ahead and open up the RTX 2060 Super. Installation guide, but who needs those? Alright, so got the 2060 Super. Now, one thing that I want to remind you is these are sensitive components. You do not want to kind of fiddle around with them outside of their electrostatic packaging. So we're just going to leave them in there until we're ready to use them. And we got our drive here, and we're going to keep that as well in the packaging to start. Got our cooler. Oh, I hate these things. Sure. So the Cooler Master actually comes with its own thermal paste. Some people recommend getting your own, but honestly the thermal paste included is good enough for any use. And definitely be careful with these. The edges are very, very, very sharp on these. So we'll put that over here. Now onto the power supply. Like I said, this... Well, that's odd. Oh, sorry. Oh, the cabling on this is a little odd. I don't think I've ever seen the black with the red caps like that, but you got your cabling here, which honestly isn't as bad as I was expecting for a cheaper power supply like this. We'll keep all that in the box though. Got your motherboard. So one tip is to use your motherboard box to build your motherboard on. It's just a smart idea. Keep it in the packaging until you need it. Let's see, let's open this. Another manual I don't need. Take that out. Obviously, SSDs aren't as sensitive because I don't have exposed components like the hard drive, so they don't have the electrostatic wrapping around it. Then on to the processor. And like I said, this is the AMD 3700X here that we are going to be using, actually. So this is the included Wraith cooler. Like I said, it's not a bad cooler by any means. It's perfectly functional if you don't plan to overclock or anything. It's actually a pretty nice unit. Like, this isn't anything to laugh about. It's a good cooler. It's got the cooling performance that you need, but like I said, I just myself prefer not to use them. I prefer a other option, which we got at. So we'll keep that boxed up. It's still a great cooler. We'll keep it boxed up, ready to go in case we have another build. But here's the actual processor, the AMD processor. But we'll leave that in its packaging. We don't need this cooler anymore. And then we got the RAM here. So actually, let me adjust this. So the camera situation is a bit odd. I am actually using a couple of security cameras to capture this. So sorry if quality isn't as good as it should be, but. And this is the RAM. It's the Ripjaws, G-Skill Ripjaws, which I really like the Ripjaws, so take that out. DDR4 RAM, obviously. Alright, so in your motherboard case, in the bottom, you will actually find your manual, which This is one manual that I recommend reading when you're figuring out your front pins, but we'll get to that. Some ridiculous things like a door thing nobody ever uses, stickers, all that stuff. But one thing that I am now realizing I did not buy is I didn't buy SATA cables for the hard drive, and thankfully this board comes with them, so we lucked out there. This looks like a piece for RGB control. These are your M.2 screws, but we're not using an M.2 drive in this build today. Some zip ties for cable management. We'll actually keep those out to the side. Those are handy. Keep that out. Rest. Accept the manual. We'll set that. Can go back in the box. And the box can then be used as your safe surface. Another recommendation. Then we'll go back to the power supply now. So my last recommendation is take your power supply, plug it in, do not have it on, just let it be off in the off position, and then plug it into the wall. And then set it on the edge of your workstation. Now the reason we do this is in lieu of having a ESD bracelet, the power supply actually acts as a ground. So touch it and you'll ground yourself out before you touch any major components. So you risk damaging them a lot less when you do this. All right, let's put that down. All right, now that we got this all ready, I'm going to take a seat. Grab something real quick. Sorry, I need a drink, but set that off the side. Alright, so anyway, like I had mentioned, I recommend plugging in the power supply and having it available just to ground yourself out. Then, alright, sorry, I'm just trying out my cameras real quick, make sure they're working. Good. Let's make sure that's working. Alright, cool. So, got our nice top view here. We got our in-depth camera there that we can use. And we are able to go back to our regular camera. Cool. Alright, anyway, we'll get to building. So, use your motherboard box as a base to build on. You want to build as much of your computer as possible outside of the case. You don't want to just install your motherboard immediately in the case. That's never a good idea. So ground ourselves out. And now we can go to the motherboard. Make sure it's ready to go. Take that off. And we're ready to start working on this. Like I said, since you've touched this, you've rounded yourself out, you're probably gonna be fine. You don't need to worry too much about an ESD bracelet. But let us go ahead and do our processor. So we're gonna go ahead and open this processor up. Let's get this open. Maybe. Gotta be careful with these, obviously, but so AMD, come on now. Alright, so I'll show you something, what I'm thinking about real quick. Let me get this working. So AMD, in their infinite wisdom, likes to make the little, you can't see it on there probably, but that little arrow on, nope, thumb side, sorry. Little arrow on this thumb side corner. It's a little gold arrow that is quite literally a speck. But that is what you're going to use to line up your CPU into the socket. There's also a small arrow you'll see on this one. It's actually in this corner here. And just a quick note, be careful not to touch any of these capacitors or anything. Obviously, they're coated, so they're safer, but still, just don't touch them. Anyway, let's go ahead and open that. Grab your processor. Be careful. There are a lot of pins on there, and if you bin just a single one, your PC probably will not boot. So, match up that corner, which on this board is going to match up corner to corner like this. You're going to be gentle to put it into the slot and just let it rest there. And then you're going to shut the lever to secure it in place. And now that processor is secured in your board. Do not try to yank it out without releasing that lever if you need to. And then these here are the stock AMD fan cores, which we'll get to that in a second. The next thing that I like to install would be the cooler. Since obviously we have the chip here, you're going to want to try to avoid touching the top of the chip just because your oils and stuff are just not good for it. But the next step would be cooler, so let's get that. So in the little supplies box, you're going to have obviously your different mounts and stuff that are needed for this cooler, as well as instructions on AMD versus Intel installation. So obviously, since we're using an Intel build, we're going to use the Intel installation instructions, which, like I said, I actually read because I usually do Intel. So let's grab the cooler and go ahead and actually clean up our mess as we go along. Makes it a lot better when you build your computer and you don't have to clean up 400 things lying around. So we'll go ahead and put it down there. And then let's get to the cooler. So it looks like if we're going an Intel or AMD cooler, we're going to want to remove the fan from this. And like I said, be careful because these are very, very sharp fins along here. So you gotta be a little careful, but kind of just pry. I took all my nails away, so this is not as easy as it used to be. 1 second. Alright, so we got the fan removed without breaking it, thankfully. So the cooler, so this is the way the cooler is going to go. You're going to want to mount it with, obviously I'm not taking off the cover yet because I'm not putting it on, but you're going to want to mount it with the fins kind of face this way so the air can blow through and out the case, because this IO shield is also where the back of your case is going to be, and that's where your exhaust fan is going to be. So we'll set that off to the side real quick now that we got that fan off, and we'll go back over here and read this. So obviously the next step they want you to do is the thermal paste, which, like I said, they do include a tube of the Master Gel Pro thermal paste in there, which isn't a bad thermal paste at all. Oh, USB ports, I forgot. Sorry. Consume chain. It looks like you're going to have 7 USB ports on this board on the back, and then you'll have 2 front headers. So you'll have 2 front USB 3.1 ports as well. So you should never be running out of USB ports with this build. And then you have a Type-C port as well, but yeah, let's make sure you open the packaging the correct direction, or else you're gonna have screws everywhere. Make sure to get those cleaned up a little. So, like I said, the next step it tells you to do is to apply thermal paste. So we'll go ahead and do that. So with a CPU this size, I like to do about a pea size amount. But if you go over, it's really not going to do anything. So I might have went a little over on that. I don't like this applicator very much, but it is what it is. So I went a little more than you typically would. Unfortunately, I can't zoom and stuff with this cam, but you can kind of see the size of that amount on there. And then we got that applied. So next, we'll remove the protective film from the bottom. Make sure you remove that. We'll set that off to... Actually, we'll just stick it back onto that. So this is where it goes different. You'll between Intel and AMD. The next instructions are all going to be Intel, so you're going to have to flip it to the back and start at number 8 for AMD. So that's where it gets a little more confusing. Let's put this here. And then the back plate for this is actually here. You know, now I think about it, I should have held off on the paste, but that's fine. Everything's okay. We'll just have to be a little more careful. So we're going to remove the base AMD cooler attachment points because we're not going to use those with this cooler. And should be about it. Let's just unscrew all the way just to make sure we get screws out, because I'm going to try to be a little careful. Like I said, I put the thermal paste on, which the recommended instructions, obviously not a great idea when you don't have your back plate in place. So we'll get all these off. Oh, while I'm thinking about it, let me go grab something. It's just a cheap little magnetic screw holder. So we got these off. We're not going to need these again for now, so we'll put those off the side and put them in the motherboard box when it comes point to do that. Then we'll take off the actually really nice stock backplate. We'll set that off to the side. And then let's see. So for AMD, you have the two sides to this. That's LGA, so AMD should be that way. Let's make sure. AMD. Yeah, these are AMD mount holes. Okay. Which way does it show to put that? Okay, so it shows to put it this way. And the screw it shows to use. Let's make sure we grab the right ones. Which ones does it say? These are the wrong ones. Okay, so let's get this going. Alright, so we got those. Sorry, like I said, I typically do Intel builds, so it's taking me a little bit longer than usual. Yeah, that's definitely the backplate for this one. So this is where it gets a little more challenging. Oh, let's make sure we put the stoppers on that. Where did those go? Oh, here they are. Oof, scared me for a second. Alright, set that off to the side. Let's grab these. Put these in. Like that.
Those bright eyes looking through mine, trying to figure out if there's any more doubt in my mind. Alright, we got all those, so what we're gonna do is slot those in just into these spots here so we can get that back plate started. Now let's get those nuts out already so we can have those ready to go. For some reason. Oh, it does. Okay. Yeah. Alright, let's get those nuts. Alright, we got our nuts. We got our nut piece there. Let's get this raised up just a bit. Oh, we seem to have lost one. Whoops. Alright, yeah, like I said, don't do thermal paste like an idiot like I did. Wait to do that. Because then you're going to be fighting with these, trying to line this up. Alright, I'm about to lose my mind. About to lose my mind. Alright, let's think this through. There's got to be a different way. Actually. All right. So now that we know which hole we need, that's better. We can actually do this a little easier. So we're attaching the black back plate. Wonder if I can go to that one.
There we go. So let's show, we're just attaching the back plate on there right now. And we're just going to do those hand tight to start, just to have it secure in there. I feel like I'm doing this incorrectly for some reason, but it is correct. But I don't know, something about it just feels wrong. You like the royalty-free music? Thank you. I was trying to not have to get a copyright strike again. The first copyright strike was actually because of Rick Roll music from the emote in Fortnite. As crazy as that is. Oh, goodness. There we go. Now it's starting to thread. Alright, so we got that started. Now, it does come with a piece that you're supposed to use to tighten it. We'll go ahead and use that. You don't need this super tight. You just need it tight enough where it's not going to fall off and it's going to be secure. But you don't need to like tighten it so tight to the board that it's going to break it. So I like to get them all tight down a little bit and go at a diagonal. Ugh. Oh my goodness. This is a lot harder when you're trying to show it for the camera. Usually this is a lot easier of a process. So just kind of go around. I got that diagonal up there, so back there, we'll go back to here. Then we'll do the last one more time just to make sure. Everything's tight. That's tight and secure on there. So let's switch our view back to top view, or so we got this all installed. We're getting close. Sorry, these lights are very hot. Let's go back to top view though. Anyway, we got that. Let's well, our thermal paste shifted a little, but that's fine. So anyway, we got that backplate installed. These are all secure, ready to go. So what you need to do next is get this piece here, and you're gonna, depending on your build, you'll have to figure out which is which. So that's gonna be the direction it's gonna be to need. Obviously, it's gonna be like that. So go through in here, stick this through there. And like that. You'll notice it has a little piece in it that kind of clicks into place, but that is how it needs to go down. So next, what I like to do is go straight down and then kind of, I don't know if this is a requirement or not. I just like to make sure I kind of get that thermal paste worked through and in there a little bit, just to make sure it's not all in one spot. So that's there. Now this is probably one of the hardest parts to do, because these screws here are a pain in the butt to get because they're pressured. You have to push down while you thread it. I like to start with one. Oh. And then I like to go to a diagonal and get the second. I like to get that one started. Go back to the first one. Go down a little bit more, make sure it doesn't pop out. And let's tighten it a little bit. Alright, so we're just going to tighten them. You don't need to go super tight, obviously, but you want to make sure you tighten up where it's not going everywhere. You know, I might switch to... Like I said, you're just going to keep going diagonally until they're tight. And then you'll kind of just go through and make sure all of them are good. So there. We can switch back to this one. Maybe. So that one's tight. That one's tight. That one's tight. That one's tight, and we're on there. Perfect. All right. So coolers on. Now we can reattach the fan. I like to go in a pull configuration instead of push. So pop your fan back into place. I like to make sure I get it plugged in as well. Let's see. CPU fan is back here. We'll cable manage and clean that up in a bit. But CPU fan is completely installed. Now that we got that out of the way, we can do the RAM. So this is where you'll need the manual, just to make sure you install it in the correct orientation. Oh, some more stuff I don't need. All right, so according to this, it recommends that you install, let's see, so there and there. So it recommends you install DIMM A2 and B2 when you have 2 sticks of memory. So with that recommendation, okay, yeah, those are the primary channels. So with dual channel memory, you want to make sure, and like I said, it's specific to motherboards. You never know. Some of them have different channel setups, but you just want to make sure that when you're installing it, that you install it in whatever configuration that the manual recommends. And with this dual channel configuration, it recommends to install one in the A1 spot here. And you'll notice there's a little notch on your memory as well. At some point, you need to make sure you line that notch up with the notch in the slot, or else you're going to break it. Yeah, it might feel like you're going to break something. Don't worry. Just push the RAM into place. It'll connect in the slot. All right, and we got the RAM installed in dual channel mode in the recommended primary configuration. So from here, we'll peel away this plastic on that. All right, so we got that installed. Perfect. So we can actually go ahead and close up the cooler master pieces and get that all cleaned up a little bit. Like I said, I like to clean up my workstation as I'm going, just a lot less clutter. We'll go ahead and clean this up. All right, so now let's see next step. Oh, awesome. I can go back to the motherboard box when we're done. Perfect. All right, where are we now? So we got the RAM installed, we got the CPU installed, we got the cooler installed. So we are at a pretty good point at this point. I feel like I didn't. So this little prong here actually stabbed me right in the finger a little bit. That's not fun, but let's just make sure we touch our power supply, deground ourselves. Don't need that yet, but we'll set that to the side. So next up, what we're gonna do is the case. So let me figure out the best way to get this set up to do this real quick. Just trying to clear out an area of my workstation to kind of have space to do this. All right, so the motherboard we can leave on here right now. We'll just set that off to the side. And next we're on to the case. So we're going to start by removing the top panel cover. All right. I like to keep the plastic on during build because I don't want to scratch it accidentally as I'm working on it, and I recommend you do the same because it's acrylic, it's not glass, so it will leave marks if you, say, drop screws on it or something like that. So that's the reason I leave the plastic on while I do it. But we'll set that off to the side. And then included in this case set up the same, but we are pieces of hardware here in the hardware slot. Go ahead and open that. And that's all of our components, like screws and things like that. Go ahead and set that off to the side. All your I/O, front panel, all that stuff is going to be right there in that bunch. You can see that it does have fans included in this. So actually, let's see. We're going to push that off to the side, just get that out of the way for now. Pull that up and kind of get that out of the way for now. And the next step is actually sometimes I do the power supply, sometimes I do the motherboard. I think this time we're going to do the motherboard first. And it looks like this case already has the motherboard standoffs included screwed in. So the motherboard standoff is actually a small little connection screw that you put in place so your board does not touch the metal. That is not good. So let's go ahead and get our board. And then the case is actually what's going to include the components to install the board, like the screws and stuff. So let's grab that. This part, make sure for this one it's actually an included built-in shield. So what we'll do is we'll slide it in like this so we can get that shield in place on the back header. So one neat feature of this case is actually a component. Let's see if I can show it real quick. It's actually a component here where it has a little standoff that doesn't get screwed in. It actually protrudes out and it grabs onto the motherboard. And it's actually super brilliant because your motherboard can no longer move once you have it in place. And it makes screwing it in so much easier. I don't know why every manufacturer doesn't do that. But it really does make this process a lot simpler. So we'll go ahead and switch back to our top view camera. Alright, we're back at our top view. So, like I said, the case actually is what includes the screws and hardware. It also comes with some zip ties for cable management. It does come with a additional little motherboard standoff in case you don't want the one that pops out to hold it in place, but I love that. Comes with some hard drive mounting screws. It comes with your board mounting screws. Comes with some fan mounting screws, which are going to be these like really rough looking screws here. Don't need those. We're not installing any additional fans. It comes with some more screws. These screws we don't need, so let's make sure. Make sure to grab the right screws. I believe these are it. We'll just do a test screw to make sure it is. Can't tell if that's just taking forever or what. Let's check on the other screws. I always mix this part up. I don't believe these are it, but it could be. Nope, nope, nope. Yeah, okay, so I do have this. Now, while yes, we are installing this in the case, we are not going to cable manage until we power the system on. So we're just gonna go back to screwing in the motherboard. Now I'm confused. I feel like I'm using the wrong screws, but I understand. Obviously not, because it's not lifting out of place. Let's get this. Seem to be having some weirdness with these screws. This is just part of building a PC. Fighting until it works, right? For some reason they are not screwing into place all the way. And I know this isn't my normal videos. I usually do like Fortnite gameplay and stuff, but I thought this would be a fun little difference in videos. Really, I don't get why these are not working right. This is a bit odd, I gotta say. We're gonna pop this out and figure out why these screws are not working. Make sure I have the right screws. I don't know if I do or not. Well, that's embarrassing. Wrong screws. I was like, why the hell are these not tightening? Bit embarrassing, but you know, happens to the best of us, so not too worried. Let's make sure. Alright, it helps a lot if you use the correct screws. So we're gonna try that again. Alright, we got that back aligned. Looks like we have a stream full of liars as well. That's good. Alright, we're gonna switch the real screwdriver. And again with these, you don't need to go crazy on tightening. Just make sure it's snug and it's in. I'm having a lot of weird issues with this board, just not wanting to fit in here. I've never run across a motherboard install this ridiculous. Yeah, this is a bit odd. I've never had a motherboard issue like this, where it just will not line up. There we go. Now we're getting a better position. And like I said, don't tighten them, because you won't be able to adjust your board position to fit all the holes. Getting these back screws is probably the hardest part, because with your CPU in there, there is no room for you to fit your screwdriver. Oh! Oh! Oh, oh, oh. So, y'all are gonna hate me, but I'm going to have to pop these screws off one more time because I forgot a crucial component. That is running your CPU cabling before you tighten down your motherboard. I did this last time I built one too. But last time I had every screw in place. This time I don't. It's a lot easier. You can just pop them out. So don't be a dum-dum. Don't pull your CPU cables through right away. You're gonna end up having to do it at the end. When you have everything installed and you go, shoot, this cable's not long enough to reach CPU without having to take this build apart and remove the graphics card, the motherboard, the cable management I just spent an hour doing. Yeah. Those are not fun times, so I'm glad I remembered this early on. And it's not anything that's gonna it's not anything that's going to affect your performance. Not anything that's going to really make any huge difference in your PC build if you have a CPU cable long enough to support it. But the problem is I would know I did it. I am currently fishing for a screw, so. A magnetized end of your screwdriver is definitely nice when it works. But anyway, it's not going to be anything that like messes up your build or something like that if you have a CPU cable long enough. It's just aesthetic. And when I'm building, I like to try to keep my aesthetics because typically better cable management is better airflow. I don't care if you're going to argue that it's not. It is. It is 100%. You know, let's see. I did drop one screw. That's in the back plate. Oh, I think I see it. Oh, yeah, there it is. Oh, my goodness. So, I forgot the security cameras show their names up in the corner. That's hilarious. I just noticed that on the stream. So we have a screw that will not come out at all. Like, it is not gonna release. This is not good. So I'm just gonna have to pry it out. Shoot. I don't know how to get this out. And I need to get it out though. That cable mess is really in the way. Now, anybody watching at home, just remember, a razor blade is not what you're supposed to use to pry. Don't do that. Shoot. So, I've never had this happen either. I've never had a screw lodge itself so far out of place in there that it just will not release. Oh. I really don't know how to solve this, to be honest. Oh, that really sucks. That's not good one bit. Alright, we were able to get that out. Oh, that's what happened. Oh, shoot. Makes a lot more sense now. That should be all of these out then. We'll pop that out. So, we got out. Kinda. But let's see. Express? No. I honestly hate the ends of these cables. I'm not a fan of this. Alright, that's not what I need. That's not what I need. That's what I need then. So yeah, okay. So what happened is the standoff for the motherboard actually came loose, which is why it wasn't disengaging. Fortunately, I do not have pair of pliers around. Actually, I might, and I do need to grab it. I will be right back.
Say the word. Sometimes when you're here, I can feel no doubts. 'Cause you keep me where the stars are bound. It doesn't really matter, 'cause you're here with me now. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter, 'cause you're here with me now. It doesn't really matter, 'cause I feel so free Sometimes when you're here, I can feel no doubts. 'Cause you keep me where the stars are bound. It doesn't really matter, 'cause you're here with me now. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter, 'cause you're here with me now. It doesn't really matter, 'cause I feel so free
Alright, sorry about that. Back. Now is I have to remove this screw. I had to run get pliers. I really don't want to deal with that again. So what I'm going to do is actually grab the spare motherboard standoff that comes with this and use that instead. Maybe. we can get this accurate. Alright, right now I am fighting to get this reinstalled properly. All right, perfect. We got all that tightened. All right. So we're going to take off back panel now. And this is actually one reason that I typically install the power supply first, is thinking about things like this. But it's fine either way. It's just going to take us a little bit longer. All right, now we got CPU cable. All right, let's pop this back. Oh, this poor motherboard. At this point, it's going to be a miracle if it even boots. Perfect. All right, let's go ahead and try this for the third time. Alright, this seems to actually be going pretty well now. Our initial issues are figured out. Like I said, these don't have to be super tight or anything. They're just going to hold motherboard in place. And you got plenty of them, so. It's probably the hardest screw in the case to tighten. That's a lie. The next one's pretty hard too. I just say, at some point you're going to drop screw in the case and have what I just spent a minute doing. It's going to happen. Where those tweezers go? Magnetize those. that was to do the one time, imagine doing that again because you forgot to do something, like put the CPU power cable routed through. So now in this point in the build, besides power supply, I'll put that in last just because that way it's a little easier to move this board around. Go ahead and mount the Samsung drive into the drive bay. Possibly. We're just gonna put that in place. Alright. I'm gonna go ahead and put hard drive in place. And alright. There's that. And perfect. So we can go ahead and do power supply now if we really want. Alright, we will slide the power supply in. So what I recommend is if you are placing this on a surface such as carpet, do not put the fan side down. But with this case, for example, it has feet, so it's not as important. I recommend putting it not on carpet. And if you do need to put it on carpet, maybe put it on something flat on top of it. But I prefer to have the intake come from the bottom of the case. That's a great question to ask, though. Consume Chain, are you going to be having this on carpet or not? And if you are, is it going to be deep carpet or not deep carpet? Because that will decide which way this power supply goes. We can either suck fan air in from the case, or we can suck it out from the bottom of the case. But for now, until I get an answer on that, we're gonna install it with air coming from the bottom of the case. Maybe. What is this thing? Alright, sorry for not explaining that step. We were just installing the power supply. But power supply is now installed, screwed into place, so that's good to go. So what we're gonna do is start to make sure we're at a good spot. We're gonna do the graphics card now. Alright, and we got the graphics card ready to go. Make sure we install it the right way. I'm like a dummy. Make sure we remove all the protective foam and film and everything. That looks good. Now, obviously, this card does not support SLI, but SLI is dead, so it doesn't matter. Let's plug in our CPU fan first. Line this up just to see where that will land. So those two. So what we're going to do now is we're going to remove the grill covers on these two spots just to make sure the graphics card has room. Unscrew those. But anyway, like I said, this is unfortunately not a amazing build guide. I'm trying, like I said, it's my first time doing anything like this on video, so it's kind of a learning experience for myself as well. I've built probably at least 12 computers by this point, but trying to remember what to say and everything is throwing me off a bit from my usual mojo, but it's like I said, this is a nice graphics card. It's the EVGA 2060 Super. Not a bad card by any means. RTX 2060 Super, might I add. It's going to be a great card for years to come. So what we're going to do, this is also important. Let's see. You can't see too well, but you're always going to want to use the top PCI Express slot because that is where the bandwidth starts. You get the most bandwidth from the top slot, so make sure you put it into the top slot. And yes, that does matter. Sorry, I have a little interference with the screw here that I need to correct first before I push it into place. So anyway, once you wind it up, just push. And it's in. That's all you gotta do. So, like I said, you just line it up. And I didn't mention this when starting this video, but all in all, this build that I'm building right now is roughly, I'd say roughly 1400, not including peripherals or anything. So it's definitely a decent build. It's not a budget build, but it's not a bad build by any means. Oh, bye, Apollo. And if you guys have any questions, obviously ask in chat. I can answer. Like, I'm willing to answer any questions that you have related to PC building or even unrelated, Minecraft server, whatever you want to ask about. Alright, and then you screw the little two connectors there, and it's secure in place, and the card is secure. Make sure you screw in the two screws, though, at the top part to really mount it in. No, you cannot get diamonds. Alright, so where were we? So the hard drive is mounted. With hard drives, they do move around a lot, so I recommend securing it in place with the mounting screw. I also recommend grabbing the correct mounting screws now that I'm looking at this. The reason I recommend doing the mounting screw is because with hard drives they do spin, so you want to make sure it's got a secure connection in there. And with this system, there actually are two mounting points. Alright, that's secure. Alright, so the hard drive, well, I lied. The mounting screw did not get in place. Well, I guess we'll find that screw, but no big deal. The hard drive's secure. Anyway, got that. I think this might take a while. I don't know if I'm going to get to the Victory Royale, but we are close actually to being finished with this build. So, not sure. We're actually really close to being finished. We're on the last steps. Next step is cable management, to be honest. And that big step. I anticipate that this build's really, tomorrow is the day I'm going to spend doing the software portion of this build, so all in all, I think I might be finished relatively soon, to be honest with you. Like I said, all I gotta do is get this cable management taken care of. Excuse me. Alright, let's see.
From now to eternity, I give you all my heart. We are meant to be, it's clear to see. My love is bigger than I thought. I got everything I want when I hold you with my arms. The others don't matter, my love and my pleasure, the key to my treasure. Whatever's the weather, day up and out with you till I die. How many times for you I'ma try? Want you to notice the one and I know this perfect soulmate. I wanna show it my best friend. She saved my life, my happy end in hard times.
Alright, at this point we are behind just cable management and getting everything all beautiful. Oh. That's funny. Nice. So I'm so glad that you guys are actually building that underwater city. Like, that's one thing I've been wanting, because that's one of my favorite things. I don't know why, I just love them. This is the weirdest. What in the world is this? This is so weird. This is the weirdest cable I have ever seen. So it's not preferred, but I'm gonna end up having to use 2 of these. So not to. But that's fine. Alright, that in. Now we're just getting this all set up. Alright, these are the SATA cables that we're just getting all hooked up. So that hard drive is wired, ready to go. Just this hard drive needs done. I'll probably go and put there to power. Now we're just wiring up for the hard drives. This is another part where the manual comes in handy. Alright, so this is where it's going to get a little confusing on which view to use, so I'm going to try to get all of them at once. So this is where we're going to check the manual just to make sure we plug in our hard drives in the correct way, because you want to make sure that you have them installed correctly, because there's different SATA configurations. So 2-8 is our manual page. Let's check. It's not it. So cool, it doesn't look like it matters on this one. Okay, good. Alright, so it doesn't matter on this board, which is good. So what we're gonna do here, or what we are doing here, is installing the front panel connectors, the hard drives. Alright, so we got the hard drives connected in. That's good. Let's undo that. Alright. This is going to be the USB connector I'm plugging in now. Up here. For the front headers. This is going to be the cable that I use for the front audio jacks. That's the connection for the HD front audio. Sorry, I'm actually undo that. I'm not happy with that going through there. I would prefer route that and that through the bottom. Where it makes it more sense. I'll just route them both through there. Just so this is where you need the manual for your front panel connectors. I have to admit, this is probably the worst manual that I have ever seen. Yeah, this is the worst manual I've ever seen. It doesn't explain to you these connectors here, which this is probably one of the most difficult parts. It's literally the worst. Alright, I finally found the page I was looking for. Alright. Lesson learned.
Just give me one chance, one dance. I fought off my anxiety to walk up to your body. Ask, ask, take my hand to the dance floor, girl. Ask, ask, hold on tight for the night, girl. Ask, ask, take my hand to the dance floor, girl. Ask, ask, hold on tight for the night, girl.
Alright, that was the stupidest stupidest setup I've ever seen. Anyway, if you're wondering what I was looking at, that is information on what to plug all those wires into. I know it's hard to see, but those wires there. Alright, we don't need manual anymore. Now we're gonna tend and install all the power cords and then do a boot and see if it boots up. One of those because there's only one on there. Gotta admit, I'm not a huge fan of the cabling on this power supply. Not a fan. Now that's not to say it's not a good power supply or anything, I don't know. But I do not like the cabling one bit.
Cruising highways longer, further. Living life is supposed to be. Red lights never seem to stop us. Trapped in shackles, yet we're free. I tried to limit my restrictions. I always fight to feel complete. I never found out what was needed. Life is always bittersweet. I've traveled through this world a million times before, and every path I cross I know what lies in store. And even though I know my heart is on repeat, life is always bittersweet. I never was one for forgiveness. I always tried to pull my weight. They say the other side is greener. I'm pretty sure I won't be late. I play my cards and some
That's better than nothing, but I am not a fan of that. But whatever. Who am I to judge?
better save my thoughts for later. Life is always bittersweet. I've traveled through this world a million times before, and every path I cross I know what lies in store. And even though I know my heart is on repeat, life is always bittersweet.
Alright, so we got that wire. Next wire is CPU. Next is main board power. Close.
We don't need to think about who to blame. It's just so complicated. Promises keep breaking, and I hate that you are all I need. And I'm stuck in between what I know and what I feel. Why are we so unsteady?
Alright, most of the power, I believe, is connected. We don't need that.
Tell me, and you see right through me, but you still know what I
Don't need that.
Why are we so unsteady? Tell me.
Alright, I believe that's all the power. So, let's see.
Why are we so
Fans. We need to connect fans. Alright, we got that system fan connected, so it's just these two.
No, is it right? Yeah, is it right? Is it right? Don't wanna fight, don't wanna fight. Wish you could be my lullaby right now. I'll take back every word of lies I lied. Remember the time we were running wild. Nothing could break us even if they tried. Remember the time it was you and I. So where did you go? Are you alone?
Alright, all the fans are connected. The front panel headers are connected. The hard drives are connected. The power supply is connected. The CPU is connected. The cooler is connected. Alright, time to plug it in. Actually, I just thought, test display. How are we gonna do this?
Still up all night, I'm up all night. Out of my mind, can't leave you behind. Wish you could hear my lullaby right now. You'll take back every word of lies I lied. So where did you go? Are you alone? Are you with someone or am I wrong?
Alright. Now I gotta add a source. And turn power supply on. Let's see. Everything seems to be working. Maybe. Fans and everything are working. seem to be in a boot loop.
Don't speak, I don't wanna hear those words. Don't say it all again to me. Don't
Oh wow,
need
it booted.
to be reminded
All right,
all the hurt you
let's make sure it works correctly.
don't speak if your words will leave me. You show me
So this is the one area where I'm kind of stuck. Is I don't think I have a keyboard and mouse available. Huh. I'm gonna have to go see if I have one sitting around.
ever since you're gone, I won't be missing you. I will be the fighter that you never knew. Oh, I felt so lost when you said we were through, but now I'm finding myself without you. I'm walking on my own, and I've never felt so strong. I'm walking on my own, finding myself without you.
So in all my preparation, I do not. How am I gonna start?
Couldn't speak, you didn't wanna hear my words. You always put yourself in front of me. I needed for you to walk away, for me to realize what you were doing. 'Cause all you ever gave me was pain. You left me wounded. You shot me with your gun, and you left me on the run, left me stranded. Who am I without your love? Ever since you're gone, I won't be missing you. I will be the
So I may have lost audio to the main mic. That is because I had to switch over here to try to set up this, unfortunately. This mic's probably not as good. Let's see, Ryzen is... Alright, let's see. Alright, cool. So we don't need that on anymore. Now we're running technical difficulties on the recording end. Alright, well, the mic is no longer working. That's wonderful. Alrighty then. But anyway, you get the gist of this build. One of the cameras and mics is not working. The headset's about to die. So yeah. Alright. So as you can see maybe from this angle here, why I ran the CPU cable how I did, because it makes it a lot easier to clean up and make nice. Alright. So at this point, a little bit of cable management can be done. So we'll Bring this up a bit. Actually, let's tie this down. Where can we get this to? Can we get that on that one? Yeah, oh, close. So we'll tie it down here then. Tie it down right there. A little tight on that, but that's okay. Alright, but yeah, at this point, it's just cable management, cleaning up, that kind of stuff. But it does boot, and everything seems to be working fine on it. So that's actually really nice, having everything work out. And cable management actually doesn't take very long. It's mostly done already, honestly. So what I like to do is get these out of here. Well, right now what I'm doing is just the final touches, is everything kind of cleaned up. Alright, and that's just basic cable management there. As you can see, they're all pretty much tied down and everything. Should be able to put the side cover on now. Now we'll tighten that back in place. Oops. Alright, and that's the completed build. Thank you for watching. Let's see.
This one for the person who feels alone. This one for the hero who has no home. This one for the one who live for hope. Changing better days. Pick your head up. Keep on fighting. Living, loving. Make your mind up. If you want it, take it. Fly away. Soaring high above the clouds.
So, go ahead and put that in one more time. We'll make sure it boots now that we did that one last time. Yep, there we go. All lit up. The motherboard has a little bit of RGB built in as well. The RAM stuff, nothing else RGB in this build, unfortunately. With how parts are, it's just, this is what it has to be. But, got fan movement there, fan movement there, fan movement there, there. We got a graphics card fan movement as well. Wow, at least on one of them, because the other one shut off. And yeah, like I said, my cable management isn't the best, but it definitely hides a lot of the cables in the build. But I like to say again, thank you guys for watching. I'll get this all put together, Windows installed and everything is the next step. Obviously, I'm not going to stream that part because that's boring. Oh, this is for you, Whiplash. Nope. Make sure we get that on correctly. There we go. We got a finished build. Ready to ship. And it actually looks pretty nice, I gotta admit. But obviously I might be a little biased when it comes to cases because, and if you'll notice, the top left camera had a glitch along with the audio, so that's why it's not updating. But you'll see I also use the same case. But let's pick it up and show. A beautiful finished build. That's the finished build right there. Just a sleek, nice case. And that's the jerry-rigged camera we used for this recording. And then this is the other one. These are just security cameras that I used to figure out how to record this. Oh, that's my desk also. That's my current setup. Got my monitor there, got my ultra wide monitor there, got my stream deck, Got my laptop. Got my keyboard, mouse, computer, all that. Actually, I got the Naga Trinity mouse, one of my favorites. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Like I said, I'm gonna end up getting this cleaned up. Unfortunately, my mic, my headset, and my camera are all having technical difficulties at the moment. So I'm gonna have to end this before it completely dies. But I just wanted to get it completely like showcase ready, and then I'll also post pictures of the finished build as well on the Discord. That way you guys can see what it looks like. So thank you again for watching. If you want to donate to either the stream or the server, you can go to store.redditmc.com, and either way, I'll get the money if it's towards the stream or towards the server. So, like I said, it doesn't matter however you want to donate, but thank you guys for watching. Oh, maybe. There we go. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. It was lovely being able to build this with you guys. I loved being able to show you guys kind of how this works, and hopefully, if anything, it was entertaining, but if not, I hope it was a little bit informational. You guys kind of learned something about PC building. So thank you again for watching. What time is it? 1:10. So I don't think I'm going to stream anymore tonight, but I do plan on streaming tomorrow. Tomorrow's gameplay will be Fortnite, so thank you guys again for watching. I got to clean this up now.
Just let go and walk away. I need you to It ain't late. I know you're halfway gone.